starting to stream. Green. Green. Right, okay, so creating effective teams. Yep, you guys can come on up. We're actually looking at the projected screen rather than you guys, so we can hear you, we just won't hear you. That's alright.
Yeah, some later slides, so maybe show up until.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so into this paper it focuses on team membership and leadership. Many other papers want to focus on just leadership. So that's something that differentiates this paper. And it elaborates on which behaviors and attitudes that research has found to be advantageous in group members, and asks us to follow these guidelines. And it asks us to ask ourselves these questions before we read some guidelines in the article. Do I follow these guidelines? Can think of times when I exhibit these behaviors and attitudes. Can I think of times when I should have exhibited these behaviors but for some reason did not? What areas do I need to improve? What do I plan to do in order to improve those areas? So it's 10 guidelines that are shown. We'll go through them now. When we feel helpless in a group, we often tend to falsely accuse someone for these problems, but that is usually not the root cause of the group's problems. They often have a deeper issue, and then falsely blame someone. It's called fundamental attribution error. Yeah, and when you are in this condition, you usually fail to recognize the other factors that influence these issues, like budgetary issues, bad group communication, or missing resources.
Yeah, encourage process of goal role and task clarification. It's very essential on the first stages to ask questions if you don't understand something, because it will help understand not only for you but for other group members. So, but don't ask only the leader of the group questions. Ask all group members, and it will also help to collaborate and create stronger team. Yeah, the common problem is people hesitate to ask questions and afraid that will make influence on their image, and just they will be look stupid or silly. But don't be afraid to ask questions. It's very essential, and if you ask a question, it will help you to achieve your goal, and if you don't, that will only destroy your image more, because you won't be able to achieve that goal. Yeah. So
just a note. Talk to them.
Yeah.
I've already read this stuff. I've done this. Yeah. So these guys are your audience. Just for all of you that project that way.
Yeah. So far, do you have some questions?
Yeah. So encourage that adoption of open communication structure in which all members and feedback are heard. Yeah. Sometimes people don't speak due to they might feel that they're not included to speak, and yeah, surprisingly, humans tend to assign a status to people I meet, either high or low, depending on different factors, like often something as meaningless as height. yeah, and status in the group, if they're a leader or exhibit dominant traits or something, and they might have a high status. And this status tendency might be good at times, but in groups they usually are not, due to the tendency that people don't feel included to speak. If a status hierarchy is established, it might be hard for the individuals to break out of their place in hierarchy, to ascend in a hierarchy. That's usually hard, but there are some ways to increase your status according to research. If you act more group oriented as opposed to individual oriented, you might have better chance of ascending the hierarchy. The best approach is of course to have a group culture where you allow everybody to speak and is aware of these tendencies, so you avoid the problem in the first place. So group culture is important in this regard. Yeah. And if so, the success of the group will increase.
Do you guys agree with all of these things?
With our group, I agreed with most of it. Some of it I would expand a little bit, like what I'll talk about in a slide or two.
Okay. Yep.
So you want to promote an appropriate ratio of task and supportive communications. Most conversations should not be just supportive, saying, I agree, or let's do that, whatever, just kind of moving it along. 70 to 80% of your group conversation should be goal or task oriented. So it should be what you need to do, what you want to get done, when to get it done, and like that. 10 to 25% of it should be the supportive. I agree, let's try that. Giving support to your group mates. And then the rest, you'll have some disagreements, which is completely normal. Sometimes you'll get off topic and unfocused, which is okay to do sometimes. It can be really good for group mentality, actually, to be able to just get off topic, talk about something, and come right back. So if a team has been discussing like the tasks or goals for a long time, it can actually be very beneficial to get off topic, talk about something else, relax, and then get your head back into it, so you're not just burning yourself out and just work, because all of us will get tired, and sometimes that'll just make us more unproductive in the end. You want to promote effective problem solving and decision making procedures. So something that I think is important to know is that not all of us are going to be good at problem solving and decision making, especially when it's about an area that we're not sure about. We have to have knowledge of the area, we have to have confidence in your ability, have the skills for it. Sometimes, like, if someone wanted me to problem solve for some medical equipment, I may not be the best person to help problem solve or make decisions for that, because I don't have experience with that. And that's completely fine. We can't all do everything that we always want to do, because we just don't have the skills or knowledge. And that's fine. So there's two different kind of processes that are used for problem solving. There's SHAWs, which is to recognize the problem, diagnose it, make a decision, and accept and implement it. And the other one goes along with that, which is the orientation phase, discussion phase, decision phase, and implementation phase. To begin orientation phase, you begin by discussing the problem and the task at hand and thinking about good solutions on how to go about it. The problem is then defined and strategies are outlined to solve it, which is the second phase. Participation in the decision-making process actually increases member satisfaction. So if everyone in a group gets a say and participates in the decision-making process, overall your group will be more satisfied and happy with the results and the outcome. Consensus does not mean that everyone 100% agrees. If one person does not agree, and then they're forcing everyone to not agree, and you have to go with what they want, that's tyranny. Consensus doesn't mean everyone's going to agree, which is fine. The majority will agree, and sometimes you'll have to get outside help to get everyone on board. But overall, you want most people to be okay with the idea, because then they'll be more invested in it, they'll work more towards it, and they'll be more happy with the outcome. Problem solving and decision making are increased when groups outline strategies early on to help ensure implementation and evaluation. So the more that you plan in the beginning and you strategize, the more likely your project will succeed and everyone will be happy with it.
Okay, this is Anna-Marie, so we're just gonna go to the next one. We'll go back there. So, for groups, norms are collective value judgments, showing people how to behave in groups. And it's necessary for groups to coordinate efforts and their goals, because in some cases establishing norms that are unimportant could lead to some group members lack of individuality and some examples of it is, for example, groups who have norms in which people need to meet early in the morning, an hour before starting work, or in some cases where people... So should we go back to her?
Continue.
Yeah.
Another example is, for example, groups forcing group members to eat lunch every day. So these type of norms are not the most important ones. And like I said, it could sometimes lead to groups having more, being more, it's not leading into some kind of
Productivity.
yeah. Okay, I can
So,
I can continue.
interestingly, one of the things that Expert wants us to do is force you guys to eat lunch together. Because they say, that will be good for the groups. If you force them to eat lunch together, then they'll be more social. So it's kind of, wait a minute, doesn't the theory say that you don't? But
Yeah.
you don't need to force that kind of norm.
And on the other hand, while norms that increase productivity are good for groups, and those type of norms are, for example, high performance and effectiveness, it is shared expectation in a project or in group in general, it is superior quality service and innovation, and in general attention to that all group members have the same attention to details.
Hello. Oh my god, I just came. Okay, so I need to read it, but I can't read because you stand
It's just also there.
okay.
Yeah.
It's better like.
Yeah.
Ah! Okay.
It's kind of a mix.
This looks stressful. Okay. Point 6 is encourage the establishment of norms that support productivity, innovation, and freedom of expression. So research shows that ethnicity, gender, and age can have a negative effect on group performance, but group conflicts about this, including personality, have a very negative and harmful effect on groups and are called interpersonal conflicts, and they need to be avoided. So how do we solve this? Because we all are different, we have different race, gender, conflicts about expertise, background, and education level leads to task conflicts. And this should actually be embraced because they are necessary for effective problem solving and making good decisions, actually. So diversity is a resource. You have to look at it that way. When team members should focus on work instead of, okay, you're a man, I don't want to cooperate with you, or you're from a different place in the world.
I've seen that so a couple of times with more you're a woman, I don't want to listen to you, right? Because we've had some students arrive from certain cultures where women are not considered academically equal to men, and so have refused to academically collaborate with female academics. And there was a particularly awkward moment where one of our admin staff put her hands out to shake his hand, and he just refused. Right? It's just no, I don't touch women. Right? So no, just culturally, no, I'm not.
Haram.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was so. It sounds funny to say, oh, you're a man, I don't want to work with you. But there are still cultures which have that problem, and it creates some very strong conflicts within a group when someone refuses to talk to the women in the group or make eye contact with the women in the group. So yeah, it's a challenge, but yep.
So research shows that diversity is in fact a good thing in a group because it leads to great teamwork and innovation and problem solving. So to benefit from diversity, everyone must have the freedom to express themselves and be heard and involved in the discussion and handshaking. Right? I have 2 more slides. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. So point 8 is promote group cohesion and cooperation. Some positive effects of cohesion and cooperations. They are that members feel satisfied and they have a greater ability to solve conflicts. But too high level of cohesion can in fact be a negative thing because often or sometimes groups think that, oh, we should agree on this and we are all they work too much on agreeing, which can actually lead to bad decisions because and it's called this kind of a psychological effect is called groupthink, and it can happen if everyone focus too much on this, and this can happen for bad situations can, for example, happen if the group doesn't report back to outside for example, teachers or have contact with the outside world. Like they create this little bubble where they just say, oh, we agree, yeah, everything is great. And they can also be very bad if they don't check their conclusions. And if the group, it can also be bad if the group leader controls the discussion too much. Then people might find it a little hard to protest and say they don't agree. And if a decision is made too fast, if they're in a stressful situation, like, oh my god, we have to solve this fast, let's just make a decision, and then the whole group says, yes, let's just go for this, and that can be very bad. However, group conflicts are almost as common as group cooperation, and if conflicts are dealt with but that's not always a bad thing as long as it's dealt with correctly. Like conflicts can in fact be a good thing. it's a negative if group members withdraw from the group, if they take, or sorry, I got a little stressed now. If the conflict is solved with by withdrawing, that is a bad thing. Or imposition, inaction, or making one side yield. So if I don't agree and don't say anything and I withdraw, that's very bad because people can actually notice it, and it will be in some cases bad for the climate in the group. But positive ways of solving a conflict is to make a compromise, solving it by finding the source to the problem, what actually led to the conflict. When the group experience competition, a group member experience competition from another one, like they're being a little challenged, it can actually sometimes be a good thing to stand their ground, to to compete back, because if they don't, it can lead to stress and personal losses. So that also is a form of withdrawal, which is not so good. But a successful way to solve the conflict is to reduce the individual's fear of rejection and increase trust in members. When this is done, everyone feels a we-ness and cohesiveness. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, I think it's two. So the researcher Ancona is saying that groups should not only have a mature and internal structure, and they would be much more effective if they interact regularly with organizations, the rest of the organization, in order to be successful. And he has 4 different key elements for external activities in which he thinks are important for groups to have in order to be effective. So the first one is negotiation with external individuals or groups. Second one is information exchange and scanning. Third one is buffering, and fourth one is strategic and profile management. So for negotiation with external individuals and groups, it is often recommended to have one individual who would in general negotiate with the rest of the organization. But also in conflict, it is important to have someone who could solve conflicts with other groups or individual in that organization. So information exchange and scanning is, on the other hand, gathering information about the organization in total, where you would know the conditions, so you would your group will perform according to those conditions, but also they would they will fit that, they will change their behavior until they will know the conditions of the firm or organization.
They'll adapt.
Yes. And buffering is protecting the group from too much external pressure, and here it is also recommended to have a guard, or like one member of the group having the role of a guard, in which they will be negotiating, like I said earlier, with the organization, but also they will be the ones protecting the group from external pressure, because sometimes a group could become less effective, or it could be too much interference, having external always knowing what they're doing, or micromanaging.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So the last one is strategic and profile management, and the thing that is mostly important in that one is creating an image for your group, or trying to change your perception in a way that your group seemed that you're doing good jobs or doing good work. And in order, if you have that good perception, it will decide if you have a lot of if they're willing to give you a lot of resources, or they're willing to give you none. So it is up to your group to decide, have meetings and plan ahead, so you know how you will want others to see you as a group, or how to be perceived.
So yeah, support the leaders' efforts to facilitate group goal achievements. Yeah, the common problem in groups is also that they blame their leaders for failures or problems that a group has. So don't do that. First, you need to ask what I did wrong, and then try to find solution of this problem. Also, effective group members don't blame the leader. They try to participate in discussions and trying to be good at teamwork. So they need to share leadership sometimes and ask questions for clarification. And always support the leader's efforts. So also good team members volunteer to perform tasks and always need to be active. Another important thing to do is to offer advice to the leader when you think something wrong. And the paper ends with a poll. I don't know which calls the effective members checklist, and it summarizes what have been done about effective membership. So it's basically it gives you a score about how effective you in team, and ask question something like do you blame others, or I don't know, how active you in the group. So and in the end it gives you a score, A, B or C. So you need to count your marks and just summarize it. Do you have any questions?
Questions in the audience?
We get to ask questions?
Yes. Yes.
No mistake.
First of all, you have the decision-making procedures. Yeah, but if you have 3 people in for a suggestion and 3 people against it, how do you go about it?
You can find a
Compromise.
for example.
Okay, so you will go for it. You will go in for it. Will you decide that you're going to go with it, or this compromise will be from the people who are against it, or?
I think part of it depends on the situation, because compromise usually makes people feel like people may not fully be for it, because like, oh, they're only doing part of what I want. I don't like the rest of it. So sometimes compromise is the only way to go about it, where you try to take points from the people that are for it and points that are against it, and try to find a way to meet in the middle. But sometimes you may just need to have a really long discussion and say, this is exactly what I want, detail for detail, to see if anyone changes their position or not. And if there's still like a 3
research said that it can have a negative effect, but it can also have other researchers says it can also have a positive effect, which is better problem solving and innovation, for example.
I could also say that it can be profitable because you have different backgrounds, so different view perspective. So maybe some people look at the problem from different angles, and that can be you can be in step ahead, from other groups. It doesn't have the group diversity.
Other questions? So I'll just make a few quick comments because we need to move on to the next group. Phatic communication is a name for all of those things you do that are social communication, both verbally and physically, outside of task-based. So we have a word for it. Hardly anybody uses it, but as is the English way, we have a word for that. The researcher is wrong about consensus, right? Consensus is a technical term that requires 100% agreement. So they're using it in a non-technical way, right? So so you have to understand, like, so when somebody uses a term in a social setting, they may be using the social meaning of consensus, and they're meaning kind of, we all agree, even if you don't really agree, you come and you agree because you realize the group is correct, right? Now, consensus decision making, technically, you're not allowed to do that. You have to actually sign, each individual has to sign that they agree, right? Which means you can't have a dissenting vote in consensus decision making, right? Technically, otherwise it's majority decision making, which is kind of what they described, was kind of a majority when you agree that it's okay to keep going. There's also plurality decision making. You guys know what that phrase means? A plurality is where you go with the decision that has the most support, even if it doesn't have more than half. So if you have 10 people voting, and one option gets 4 votes, and another option gets 3, 2, and 1, even though no one vote got the majority, it was a plurality of, so the maximum within the group. So that's another type. With communicating, I use side channel communication to indicate that I still want to be part of a group, even when I'm arguing, right? And by that, I'll do things like offer to make a cup of tea or coffee, and while making the coffee, have the debate, and then hand the coffee over while having the disagreement, as a way of having a side channel saying, oh, I still want to be here and I want to be in this discussion, right? I'm being helpful, and I'm giving you coffee, and I'm doing something for you while I'm disagreeing with you, right? So I try and find a side channel. In personal relationships, I've done that before when having an argument with my wife at the time, whichever wife I currently had, holding hands while you argue. Right? So you use a physical side channel to say, no, I'm still in this relationship, even though we're disagreeing about stuff. It's not that I don't want to be in the relationship. I want to be in the relationship. I'm just, we're having a discussion, but there's this other channel that I need to communicate.
And also, she can slap you.
If you hold both hands tightly, then she can. There's a safety mechanism in there. So, yep, buffering is important. So in the 6-animal model, I use my rabbit as my buffering mechanism. You also heard it sometimes called a Spock. So it's called Spock when it's a single point of contact. So if you're a Spock, you're a single point of contact. So sometimes you need a Spock in your group. And I think one of the things I also disagree about this paper, it is awfully rosy about leadership, right? It says, you know, if something goes wrong, don't blame the leader, blame yourself first. And it's saying, but there are bad leaders, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's appropriate.
I think the main point was just to not have that be the initial.
The first blame is the leader. But it kind of,
we tend to blame others instead of ourselves, and that's sometimes we are at fault.
Yes.
And that's the thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the symptoms of depression is that you blame yourself for everything. Also, people who are depressed accurately estimate their driving ability, where everyone else thinks we're better than average. So like when you look after people, are you an average driver? like 80% of people say that they're above average drivers. Clinically depressed people normalise around 50%. So apparently your ability to estimate your own driving, you think you're better than you are, and that's a normal state to be in. Which is partly when you're driving, you blame other drivers for what goes wrong. Right? And so that's very common road ragey kind of blame other people rather than blame yourself first. Okay, right, thank you. Right, let's switch this up to the next group.
Yeah, that's us, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And how did you guys decide on everybody having an equal amount of talking time?
Just random.
You just
Nice roll.
No, I made a script for the assigned topics.
Excellent. Because you don't also have to completely agree with everything in the theory, right? Okay. Well, see, so unfortunately, I might have to dip out for a couple of minutes at 10 o'clock, but I'll let you guys start because you know we have Ivan and Hilda here, so we do have like people here giving you feedback. And maybe if I leave, people will talk more to the group rather than talking to me. Because I think my presence sucks up a bunch of attention from the rest of you. Okay? So, I'll go over here and let you guys present. And that way I'll be behind you so you can't look at the look at the rest of the group.
So we're talking about group dynamics. So this is a social study that looks into the nature of groups, the behavior of groups, the relationships between individuals and groups and with other groups. So we will be talking about everything group related in this presentation.
Firstly, it's very hard to give one and common definition for a group, but the group can be defined regarding different things such goals, independence, interpersonal interaction, perception of membership, structured relationship, mutual influence, and motivation. So the group can be defined as number of individuals who join together to achieve some common goals. Also as collection of individuals who are independent in some way, who are interacting with each another. And a group can be defined as a social unit consisting of two or more persons who perceive themselves as belonging to a group. Also can be defined as a collection of individuals whose interactions are structured by a set of roles and norms, and as a collection of individuals who influence each other and are trying to satisfy some personal needs through associations.
Yeah, there's a question. Does actually groups exist? Which has actually been a serious topic of research. So firstly, we have two classes or two groups. We have the group-oriented ones and the individualistic ones. So basically, the group ones are usually within the social science. And yeah, their focus is on the group as a whole and the influence of the group and the largest social system which they are a part of. Well, we have a guy called Emil Durkheim. He, as early as 1898, said something like that if then we begin with individuals, we shall be able to understand nothing of what takes place in a group. And then on, we have another guy. They have really funny names and really did work early, 1895 again. A group mind exists separate from the mind of an individual member. So once again, kind of Gestalt principle, if you knew that. And at last, we have Levine, who was a Gestalt psychologist, says a group cannot be understood by considering only the qualities and characteristics of each member. But then we have on the other side the people says, well, a group doesn't exist, it's just individuals being together. Yeah, a group is not thinking, feeling or acting, only people can. And therefore a group is not a real thing and do not deserve to be studied. Well, that's harsh. Groups have no nervous system, only individuals have nervous systems. So basically, yeah, it's the same and individual is the important part. This was said by Alport in 1924. So once again, old stuff. Another one, and then we have just referring to different views on this is basically groups have also been defined on the basis of individual perceptions of other members, Bale, 1950, individual reward, Bayes, 1960, and individual purpose and meaning, Miller, 1967.
So I'll be talking about the importance of group. So in our daily lives, which involves social activities, so we have to interact with different groups. Like you have study group, game group, whatever group. Okay. And first, why is it important? It's the understanding of group dynamics is the central to maintain a viable family. So the author talks about divorce, single mother. It's because family is one of our core small group member, and it is the toughest to maintain. And to build and maintain a constructive family, the individual should have the knowledge of group dynamic and small group skills. The next is knowledge of group dynamics is essential to effective business and industries. So decades ago, the US is the mass production. Is the the leader in manufacturing. So later, many business have turned into a smaller company, which they are more focusing on high productivity generated by the small groups, which means that the big companies starting to turn into a lot of small companies, and also, so for the small companies. The organization have to create the teams that are dominated by the culture of learning, continuous improvement, and adaptation. So what makes the employee, is their ability to work in small groups and produce results. This is the main point. Okay, the next is dynamics is central to education. It is very obvious. In a traditional way of education, it was listening to the lecture and paper and taking notes. So nowadays, like we have experienced, the classroom is more interactive. Like most of the classes, we are divided into small groups and have a discussion about the topic. So, and Johnson & Johnson said the cooperative learning has been shown to produce high achievement, more positive relationship, and greater psychological health than competitive or individualistic learning. So the next is knowledge of group dynamics is central to long-term maintenance of psychological health. It's like you have to talk with people so that you won't get depression, lonely, psychological mental problem.
So this group structure is a basic structure that's common for all groups, since many groups are so diverse. The roles and norms are something that is common for all of them. For roles is you can either have a formal role dividing, so you vote for example, a leader, or if someone wants to be a worker, or you can basically take a role out of your own interests but no matter what, you will have some sort of role in your group. Yeah. And norms are rules within the group, either written or just developed over time. For example, for when to show up in the morning, you don't have to write it down, you can just have an expectation for the others to actually meet when you say you're going to meet. It's meant to regulate behavior within the group, and the norms have to be developed within the group. They can't be forced upon a group from the outside perspective.
Creative productive groups. Researchers Katzenbach and Smith have developed a group performance curve to explain the difference between ineffective and effective groups. On this curve you can see 4 types of group. This is pseudo groups, traditional works groups, effective groups, and high performance groups. Pseudo group, this is group at the bottom of curve, performance curve, and member may believe they are part of team, but not yet acting like one. Traditional work group. At this level, member of groups are moving towards a common goal and approach to achieving it. Next, it's effective groups. On this type of groups, a small groups of people share a common purpose and approach. High performance group is the relationship between members of groups and the interesting of personal growth and develop. All these groups can be created different of way and for a multitude of reasons.
So I've been talking about creating an effective group. There are 7 guidelines. So for the first one is establish clear, operational, and I'm not going to read that. Okay. So it said that the group is formed is because people want to achieve a goal, but they are unable to achieve by themselves. So they have to form a group. And in an effective group, the goal must state clearly and operational, relevant, and create positive independence among the members. So the next guideline is about the two-way communication. It says that mention about the send and receive message effectively to exchange information and transmit meaning. Okay, so for effective communication can decrease the misunderstanding and discord among members. So for the third guideline is about the leadership and participation distributed among all group members. It means that all members has equal participation and leadership. So everyone has the responsibility investing in group work and commit in group discussion. And when group as a whole, they can use the resources of every individual and increase the cohesiveness of the group. And the fourth is about the power. So it says that in an effective group, the members' power is based on the expertise, ability, and access of information, but not to authority or personality characteristics. So the power struggles can distract the groups from its purpose and goals and make the group useless. So each member has the same power of influence in some part of the work. So the fifth guideline is about making decision. So a group can have many ways in decision making. So So, but it is suggested to have a balance between time and resources the group has available and the method of decision making. So the most effective way of making decision is usually by consensus. So consensus promotes distributed participation, equalization, power, constructive controversy, cohesion, involvement, and commitment. So the 6 guidelines about engage in constructive controversy by disagreeing and challenging one another conclusion and reasoning, thus promoting creative decision making and problem solving. So it says that controversies over opposing ideas and conclusions are beneficial for groups because they promote the involvement in the group work, quality and creativity in decision making, and commitment into implementing the group's decision. So basically, arguing is good in the group. So for the 7 guidelines is face your conflict. Don't run away from it. So there are 5 basic strategies can be used to manage the conflict of interest, which is withdraw, forcing, smoothing, compromise, and problem solving. For the forcing, it means that win-lose negotiation, and for problem solving is integrative negotiation. So, in conclusion, conflict are important and indispensable aspect of increasing the group effectiveness.
Okay, we have talked a lot today about how to be an effective group, but sometimes it's hard to understand if you are an effective group if you have only like if you only have an image what it means to be effective group. I mean, like, you have some items connected to the effectiveness of group. So okay, I fit 3 of them and one of them is unimportant. It's easier to see if you are effective or ineffective group comparing all the details connected to the meanings of effective and ineffective groups. So if you want to be an effective group, all those must be clarified and modified so that the best possible match between an individual's goals and group goals achieved. Instead of this, if you are an effective group's members accept imposed goals, so they didn't take into account their own opinions. Effective groups have communication two-way communication, and ineffective has communication is one way. Also about leadership is quite important because when you are an effective group, participation and leadership are distributed among all group members. Instead of this, in effective group, leadership is delegated and based on authority. Ability and information determine influence and power for effective group, and for an effective position determines power. Power is concentrated in the authority system. Decision-making procedure are matched with the situation for effective group, and decisions are always made by the highest authority for an effective. Structured conversity in which members advocate their views and challenge each other information and reasoning is seen as a key to high equally and creative decision making and problem solving for effective group, and disagreement among members is suppressed and avoided for ineffective group. And conflicts of interest are resolved through integrative negotiation and mediation, so agreements are reached that maximize joint outcomes and leave all members satisfied for effective group, and conflict of interest are resolved through, I can see it, through distributive negotiations or avoidance by ineffective groups.
So this is the 7 Tuckman 7 stages of development for a group. In the beginning, it's defining and structuring procedures. So in the startup phase, you need a coordinator, like we have Simon, to tell us what to do and when to show up. Conforming to procedures and getting acquainted. Yeah, so still the coordinator has to take part in responsibility of own and others' performance. Yeah, so it's self-explanatory, the first few stages. Recognizing neutrality and building trust. So this is the stage when the group members realize that they cannot do this alone, and that they have to actually cooperate together to achieve a goal. And this can, and building trust can be done by sharing ideas, thoughts, and concerns within the group. Then we have rebelling and differentiating. So this is the stage when a lot of group members disagree with a lot of, could be the other group members or the coordinator. So at this stage it's important that you reason and negotiate so that disagreements don't get out of hand, and of course let the group members decide on procedures and take ownership of the rules within the group. Committing to the group's goals, procedures and members. So at this stage you really don't need a coordinator anymore. The group can coordinate itself, and the norms are established. The norms and boundaries usually get set during the rebelling and differentiating stage. So within the next stage you should have some norms established, and you will work together towards a common goal, and then functioning maturely and productively. So this stage is a stage that a lot of groups don't get to. It's you work better than you do in the stage before, basically. You become a more productive group. Yeah. And the last stage is terminating and ending the project.
The field of group dynamics. Like all scientific fields, the field of group dynamic is combination of theory, research and praxis. Theory can identify the characteristic of effective group. Research can validate and cancel the theories, and practical methods of the validated theory are put in the real world to see if they work.
Yes, then we have the concept of online groups, which is all kind of communication through screen, which can be social media platforms, email, twittering, blogging, but also playing online games. Well, basically, first of all, it's a group when you're actually spending time together. So basically, time away from facing each other in real life, but on the screen, then makes it an online group. Secondly, it's really easy to build a bigger group of friends, because basically people are interested in the same thing. You meet at something, you have a common interest, basically. And well, because once again, it's internet, it's all through the screen. The geographical limits aren't there. I can speak to whoever I want in the world as long as they have internet connection. And yeah, as said, it's easy to find someone you actually have similar interest with. Quite exploratory stuff. We can also then choose to show who we are in internet group or online group. If we want to seem like someone, we just make a portray in that way. We'll make it so it looks like that. And that feels good. I can be who I want. And I can spread my ideas and my material widely without actually having to do much work. And all this can be really highly fulfilling and positive for me, or whoever participates in this group. But on the other hand, it could go bad. Because usually, you can see that the ethics, manners and values you participate and show on in an online group, if it's a positive group, it's a positive manner which you will take on to your life being, like, or off screen. But the same thing can be seen all the way around, that if people are participating in hate groups, native groups, or so on this group online on the screen, they will also usually have the same behavior off screen. So people who do, yeah, basically whatever negative will also show off, usually off screen. And that is it.
Does anybody have any questions?
With online groups, have you experienced people being the same online as they have in person? Because I've had the opposite experience. People being one way in person and a different way online.
Yeah, but that's the exact point. You can choose whatever you want.
I would like to supplement so that we can save time. Just to ask this question.
Yeah.
In real life scenarios, do you get to choose who's on your team if you're working for a geographically diverse organization, for example? Yeah, you can answer.
Yeah, your question was
Just in your experience, have online groups actually acted the same as in-person groups? So my experience has been very different.
no. Well,
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else who has a question? Yeah, I think you have a typo on your slide 1 and 2. It says group dynamic instead of dynamics. Yeah, but that's okay.
we'll fix that.
You said you had a couple of slides that said, do you agree that the group, or you said, do group even exist, right?
Yeah.
And then the next slide was like importance of groups. What is your opinion? Do groups even exist? Because
we
could
exist.
have few famous people and how they believe that the group can exist.
Well, basically, we can then quote Simon Ash, who went in with an in-between solution to this. He compared groups to water. We could look at it as atoms of hydrogen and oxygen, but we won't get a whole feeling of what water is, but just looking at those elements, but we need to observe it in how it works together. So yeah, there's both things. No idea is absolutely correct. It's a mixture of them.
No, it was just like when you had like the first slides, group definition. I was just thinking if there's supposed to be sort of like a flatness to define a group, in the sense that what if there are like two bosses and then a bunch of the underlings, but you call them a group? Or is it just like, yeah, two dictators or something? Because like in my experience working, like I can't speak for like the entire Asian countries. I can just like speak the culture in my country boundaries. Like, if you just like look at the vicinity, it's like a group of people, but yeah, as the underlings, they can't say anything. It's like the bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
Would that be a group?
That once again depends on how they look on it. If the people, everybody in the group sees it as a group, well, they have a common goal and they agree on it, then they agree. If they have the same identity, we work together as identity and so on. But yeah, just once again, there's some definitions and you need to look up the 7 of them.
Okay, one last question. You said twice that all the leadership and participation should be distributed among the group equally, or is it possible to not have a leader?
I have a question on this one. I think this is a little bit, it's too inappropriate. It should mention about small, low power group and small, high power group. How to communicate between the small, low power to the high power. This is what I figured out. So,
Yeah, at least that would be more relevant in the case of like traditional group like a faith kind of. Yes.
In my opinion, I think leadership should make the peers included. You can be amongst them and do not make them feel like you are inaccessible. It's more of a Nordic culture, I think, and that works really well. The leader does not become inaccessible, and he does not portray himself like a really important person. He's always amongst you and work with you. Does not ever make you feel like you're working under him. It's more like working with him. So I think that's the way to do it.
So it's more like
Inclusiveness, yeah. Maybe you can have it now. We are the next. We're supposed to be a third group, and then there was supposed to be a break.
Have a break.
We can have a break now for 15 minutes. You write back. Working groups so that they can get situations that they can refer to.
I used the
Okay, we have a longer presentation.
So this is wrong.
I think that's the first well.
Yeah.
This is the theory,
But there's no color.
that's how
Yeah.
because what the other is like the theory is that the guy just displayed you categorize human emotion.
Okay.
Right? So part of this understanding.
So how about this one?
It's the same Robert Archie. So the other two, like this one and the other two below, these are complementary things. There's no
Mellom disse to skolene, og at hvis de liksom, de kan ikke kjøre sitt opplegg med oss, de må faktisk også tørre å tenke seg litt hvordan vi har prøvd å kjøre skolen.
I think the result is that the choice of color is subjective, so maybe you can.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Ja, så det er det som synes jeg alltid
It's a selectless game.
vi kommer til å ta opp tiden
So you can base that on your own feelings.
Yeah, because that's based on I don't think you're brown when I think of
Men hvis vi skal spesialisere på samarbeidet, så er det ikke så veldig stort problem med samarbeidet, men jeg har litt problem med faget.
see what the question is, like how they phrase the question. It's the emotion.
Associate.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think she has come because
Anyway, I don't want to change anything.
me neither. Personally, but I'm not sure if I'll change it. I'm extremely tired of it.
I'm formatting all the pages because it's all different
Yeah,
size.
but how many words rational we have?
I didn't calculate.
But this looks like
Maybe 50 words for each. This is 100? 100?
are these all one rational? Is this all one portfolio?
This is 1.4.
Yeah, then you have well, because this is like 150 between your words, I think.
Okay.
Maybe five, maybe same. Like 300. If I have more than 300, I'm fine. I'm really bored of it because I didn't rush through it last night. Then I did it for a week, and I can start again.
The deadline is right?
I think it's only 25th. And then another one, but I think I'll know how to do that one. And the rationale is so hard for some of them.
Yeah, some.
But you see, like, you read text where it makes sense. Like here it makes sense to write something, in the other one it makes sense to only write a sentence.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like you can write the same amount for all of them. You don't have like references, etc. But in the rational method, me neither.
What was that?
I was sleeping. Just woke up, was so tired.
You had the rat case. Yeah.
What? You predict I was sleeping.
Yeah, I thought you asked it.
Nei, ikke bare det. Vi var innom det.
I woke up and it could be hard. Just like 9:30, but yeah, so that
Men vi hadde
mean,
der, altså, der
I was
var
really tired and I couldn't.
som du kunne jo
Like
sette
that.
opp tidene.
Yeah, but like
Og velge mellom vi har masse
listening to
forskjellige
Science was like,
Kanskje jeg kunne helt sikkert
no, not today. I think
Du kunne jo
first
til
ask
å ha masterfag i
the very beginning, so
mange som gjorde det.
yeah, that too.
It's all from
Men
Now I just need to read
obligatorisk, det er da man har litt
Yeah, but just like to go for project, not classes.
Du vet vel ikke at jeg klarte å gjøre det på
Blackboard is
det var jo faktisk
Конечно, я спрашиваю. Просто может быть, знаешь,
way longer than it should be.
It will take a long time to look at it and see the word.
одна часть съедешь это
The
границу,
new word.
и как часть
So I use the sketch.
в Калининграде.
I just had a picture, like had a picture and a comment, and then I just write text.
Хочешь, не хочешь?
Because I think we need some more PDF or something like that.
Ну, я еще, знаешь, когда...
But I know how to do it better, so I just use that.
like a button, but I don't want to change. Yeah. Exactly what you should do, but not more. And then some of them have like many pages presented, but dry out. And like, so this is like. I think I did practice because it says for each of these palettes. So I guess it's like use one design, you these three colors, and one design using these three colors. No, I think you should. My interpretation is you should mix them. So like this. That's what I did. I made like a mobile website, so like it's just one page of a mobile app. Because then I'm taking it might look very worse. Yours looks better actually.
Kan du prøve å lese kapittel 67 en backsboka?
Ja, det står online.
Jo, men det var 94 kapittel. Jeg kjente basisakapitlet der, men vi hadde, altså jeg skrev 10 sider med notater i går på maskinen. Det sier litt om hvor mye som jeg har gjort. Men basis baserer dessverre, så tenk på det. Bare sånn, leserprøveeffekt, bare går det med å reflektere over det. Intens forelesning. Så i basis at jeg ikke skrev alt det der, så jeg egentlig ikke fikk gjøre det, men det er bare nødt til å gjenta sette det selv.
Воно не було не було. Ну как на долине? Кто-то там пришел с посчитали вместо апельсина посчитали лимон. Он в 2 раза дороже. Ну они да. И еще 20 в экстра. That's how I make something good. Yeah.
Sorry.
Он не первый раз наоборот.
Okay, so what?
Ну я спросил его. International office. Он говорит, ну если ты по-другому понимаешь, то я вообще вся. И второй раз она мне выдала.
І карт буде відкрити на тому, що...
same name you are.
Yeah, it was March. Yeah, that's what reminds me of March. Yeah, because they were reading. Yeah, it's the last. Okay, the thing is, it gets lighter, so it's less likely when that is basically more lighter, it's harder to see. So it won't be that extreme. If it happens.
Yes, Tjena, men
I got everything.
Norwegian or
The
not,
guys
and
by the light, where like last few months. March is a good month, just like how much of like
And
the best to look at up there.
the bus station, I like Johan.
I know. Until the day that about the start of April. Until then, it's dark up there without hair. From that day on, it should like more like yeah, because then that turns so that they go towards time and get
And what is typical Norwegian names? That's why it's so complicated for you. Thomas?
Just research more, not trust them. Just like look at us. Pronunciation. Actually, you can find a photo for it. You can see the photo. And maybe yeah, it's for the 2 hours.
But it's only
No, it's not.
When
you apply for and when you go for the for whatever in the speaking has to come you might get drivers. So basically you can go from
how do you change it? Do you need to mention all your friends in paper or not?
Yeah.
I don't have
I need
They will check on Facebook, they will check.
So basically, if you want to do something with the supplement, yeah, but
It's not
it's saying you
ethical. It's only for positions connected to security or
No. I'm talking about one thread. I'm not talking about the I'm talking about this next. If you are somewhere figure out which day you have no Friday.
you just sign in for it.
It doesn't matter how long it is. It's just one thread. Except no way. Yeah.
You kind of see Aurora's together final time series.
I can tell what to do.
I also have, but it wasn't complicated. You just say in the papers that you are not allowed to tell this information during 2 or 5 years.
Again, there are different at the time change. Should we go with the next one? Like I didn't know what to do.
They will tell on the
Will you take time? Is the other group ready? Because they have to go fetch the adapter or something. Can the next group go over the presentation? This is gonna happen.
There might be one over
Yeah, he's here. That's okay.
What?
He is here. I thought he was going to take longer.
Oh, okay.
Adapter boy, bring the adapters.
That's what it is. Because also of have it made good for you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It's basically it's the same as
because of the internet.
something like a farm book.
Maybe. Messy room.
Oh.
This is kind of game. I'm still playing. I just want to finish it and forget.
I don't know, it's struggling. PowerPoint online.
Okay, hi everyone. Today our group will share with you what makes work group effective. Firstly, we would like to raise
Like twice.
It's jump.
And it's loading now.
Yeah. Okay, the internet was stable. Even we use the cable.
Well, what was the problem this time?
It's quite strange.
Just switch with the keyboard. Go. Then come back.
But not this one. This one should be second. Yeah. We would like to introduce you the group effectiveness model. From this model, we will know how to evaluate whether the group is effective or not, and what factor will contribute to the successful of a group. To evaluate whether a group or effective or not, we will base on three criteria, which are performance, process, and personal. And the other three factors that contribute to the group effective is group process, group structure, and group context. We will go in detail later on. But now we can see the illustration of the group effectiveness model. You can see the three criteria, which is performance, process, and personal. It's quite hard to read. I think it's outside, and inside is the three groups, which the three group context, structure, and process. They are interacted. They are connected together, and it's quite complex, influence each other, and each group contains some element. For example, in the group process, we will have problem solving, decision making, and conflict management. Okay, let's go to detail in the three criteria. Okay, the three criteria for effective group, including performance, process, and personal. We're talking about performance. Normally, a group will need to provide a service or a product, and this kind of service or product have to meet the demands of two types of customer. The first one is internal customer, and the second one external customer. Internal customer is the person in the organization, but in different teams. For example, the design team needs to produce some product that need to meet the marketing and the sales team demand. So that one is internal customer. So external customer is the actual user who will use the product, and they will evaluate the performance based on how the customer is satisfied with the product or service, how good experience the customer have. That is for performance. And process will relate to process and structure used to carry on the group task, and how it enhances its ability of the group member to work together. For example, on the first day we have the kind of animal avatar of wolf, owl, and rabbit. That kind of the group structure, whether we can think in our yes. for example, the wolf and the outing, we can reflect this kind of structure in our process report, whether or not this structure help us in the teamwork. Okay, that's a process. For personal relate to the improvement on the member itself in the group. How good the person, how good the member improve themselves, and does he or she meet the need for the basic needs? For example, does he or she find the need for to feel competence, or the need to learn something new? So for these three criteria is interrelated together and help us to evaluate whether our group effective or not. So the next one we will go in detail of the three factors which can contribute to the group effectiveness. The first one will be the group structure, and Giovanni will show it.
Yeah, the group structure is the result of how the group is theoretically structured, so the position inside the group, and also how it's the interpersonal relation between the members. So it's a recurring process. It's that the results of the interaction of the interaction between the members and the recurring interaction between the members will shape how is the final structure of the group, and the elements that have been identified as constructing the structure are the mission, which is the purpose of the group, so what would answer to the question who we are and why do we exist and how we are going to act. So it's kind of a general guide that is the concept that guides the acting of the group. Then there is the group culture, that should be effective group culture, which is the collection of the fundamental values that are driving the group. Values and beliefs, so it's how each member, for example, is how each member should behave in any particular situation, or you could imagine that an extreme case is if you are working in a non-profit organization, then there are some strong values and belief in working for, again, non-profit but a better good. If you're working in an oil company, then you have a completely different set of beliefs and values. Clear goal is usually not something that is set by the group, but is something that comes from above, either the company or the stakeholders, and it's very important for a group to have a clear goal, as it is the parameter that can be used to guide the actions and also to measure the effect of the group itself, so whether a goal is reached or not. Then group tasks are important, as motivating group tasks will keep the group focused, and a good group task requires that all the group members are engaged, that they have a meaningful part of work to do, and a group task should have a clear outcome, and again should allow to have a distributed workload over the group members, and in the end, again, comparing to the group goals, a group task should give a feedback to the group itself on the quality of the work. Then you have membership, which means the members of the group should be appropriate for the task that they have to do, which means enough people and enough expertise to tackle the task. Also, there is the question of stability, which means that a group should be flexible enough to account for loss of members and to quickly integrate new members, but still it shouldn't be an effective group is usually fairly stable in the members that are inside it, so that the time needed to get new member up to speed is not consuming precious time inside the group. Defined roles and leadership. this is how the group in itself has roles, and not only defined as the position inside the group, so programmer, graphic designer, and so on, but also has a mix of bottom-down approach to the roles and a bottom-up, which is more dependent from the personality and the expected behavior between the members. So good roles within the group are those that account for new people coming in, and if there is a very specific role that has been developed over the years inside the group or over time inside the group, meaning that is a non-standard relation between members, that should be always discussed and with new members, so that they are not expecting a different behavior inside the group. So regarding leadership should be defined, and also the boundaries of leadership should be clearly defined, and new members should be informed about that as well. And boundaries includes what is the responsibility of the leader, what is the power of the leader, and so on. Group norms are it's kind of similar to group values, but it's more related to how the people are interacting with each other. So it's a agglomerate of shared rules and expected behavior. So it could be written or implied rules between the members. The important thing regarding group norms is that not only they should be shared and accepted by all the members in the group, but the group should take in account that new members will need to be trained or informed about the norms before any issues actually occurs. The last element is time, and time can be divided in two parts. That one is the production or performance time, which is the actual development of something, and the other one is capacity building time. That is usually not as much as needed. So it's learning, research, and all the things that a group should do in order to get up to the point that they can actually solve a task. Okay, next one is the process.
When we are talking about the group process, we have to be careful about the thing that how questions are much more important than what. So process refers to how things are done rather than what is done. And to be effective, a group must manage a number of levels. The first one is problem solving, decision making, and the other ones are conflict management, communication, and boundary management. Problem solving. There are some exceptions. For example, some groups which agree that they shouldn't judge each other, or there are some special norms for them. But for most of the other groups, problem solving can be mentioned as the central part of any group activities. When we are talking about problem solving, we have to mention that all the group members should agree on what is the problem and what are the main reasons behind it. And also, the group members should focus on the same stage when they are going over problem solving. For example, we can see in some kinds of groups that come to problem solving, some of them are working on what is the problem and what are the reasons behind it, but the other ones are working to find some solutions for it. Then it is decision making. There are various ways to find and to make some decisions for the groups. And the first one is based on the role of their leader. And the leader of the group decides alone, with or without
consulting with other people. There is another way that in that way the leader becomes as a kind of the same person as the other people who are working in the group, with the same influence of the other ones. And the third way is that the leader delegates all the problem solving to the other members of the group, and he's just observing what other people are deciding, agreeing any outcome of this decision making process, given us certain types of criteria. Conflict management. When it comes to conflict management, we have to make sure that in this case we shouldn't persuade each other that we are right and the other one is wrong. All the members of the group should share previously hidden files, and they have to have the right to openly disagree with other members, and also they have to resolve conflict. It is not just finding a way to solve the conflict. They should know how the conflict arose, how it was solved, and how they can prevent the conflict to occur again. Then it is the communications. The group members should share their opinions and how they arrived at that. And the other thing is that they have to have direct communications with each other, and members should communicate directly with each other. And also, they have to be careful that they shouldn't, when they are communicating, they shouldn't consider the status of the person that they are talking with. And the members should express their disagreements regardless of their status. The last one is the boundary management, and it refers to the relationships with the organization. The group members and also the organization should decide what types of information they want to share and how they want to share this information, what task each party wants to perform, and how decisions are made.
So, lastly, we have the group context, which are more factors that we can't control, but we might be able to influence. Because as a group, most often you are not alone. You are part of something bigger, either an organization, as in a job or a company, or here at school we have the university, which is our organization, and we are influencing each other. So that's something when you're trying to be an effective group, you should try to you might see something wrong. You want to influence the organization to make it possible for your group to be more effective. And so you have I can't see what it is, so I'm just gonna read it. So you have, for the group context, the different aspects are you need to have share the goal and vision of the organization, because if you don't have this shared, if you don't share the same values as an organization, it's hard to be an effective group within the organization. So, and it's, as an effective team, you should also, if there's uncertainty within what the values of the organization is, you should ask, because that's a good thing. And also, there's within the organization, for the groups to be effective, there should be a supportive culture, because support equals better efficiency. Because it's hard to be efficient and feel valued doing stuff if you don't feel like the organization is supporting you. Or someone might like it, but as a general consensus, that's not really good. And the reward. This third point is the rewards consistent. Rewards consistent with objects and design, which means that one example this chapter takes up is that if the group has coming up with a solution that is supposed to be rewarded as a group, and then the organization wants to just reward a single person within the group, then that means there will be conflict, because the group feel like they all get together to this one idea or a solution. And so that doesn't mean that all rewards should go to the group itself, but it should be connected to the design and the task. So if it was a group task, the group should be rewarded accordingly. But while if it was more of a single person's job within the group, then that person should be rewarded because he or she was the one that did it. And the fourth is the information, including feedback, because knowledge is king. You should have the information of the effects of what you do. So, for instance, for designs, you should be for designers, you should be informed that what your design will do to all the other parts of the organization. So, for instance, me as a applied computer science, I hate it when I get some ridiculous design idea that says do it, because I know that I can't do that. So there should be a general knowledge and information that you want to do this, but they can't do it, so you need to redo it in some way that they are able to do it, and that goes both ways. So, and you should also, as an effective group, have information to what you as a group are expected to do and what you might do wrong, what the organization thinks you are doing wrong, because or else there will be conflicts. There should also be the possibility for training and consultation, because in an effective group you should always have the possibility to explore new things, learn new things, gain new knowledge, because that's an important part of being effective. You need to learn new things all the time. Second last one is the technology and material resources, which is that when you're doing a job, you need to have the technology, technologies needed and the resources needed to do the job. So the example here is that in a hospital, you need a technical, not technical, the medical equipment. You can't do a scan without a scanner, and you can't operate a person without the relevant equipment, and you can't build a house if you don't have the material. So to be effective, you need to have the relevant tools to do your job. And lastly, we have if this would just show it. Exactly that word. Lastly, are the physical environment, because to be an effective group, you need to have the fitting environment. So, for instance, I would say that this environment is not fit for all of us being effective groups, because it's way too crowded. So this is a classic example of not a fitting physical environment. And since we are doing a VR project, you need to be able to have access to somewhere to test this. So that's another example of a physical environment that is needed. If you don't have VR equipment, how on earth are you supposed to develop VR? And it's also connected to the group collaboration, because since we now have a lot of in working setting, you have starting to get more distance collaboration and distance work group. You need to have the setting to be able to do that as well. So that's that. And I would also like to finish with something that's in the start of the chapter, which says that all models are bad, but some are useful, which is important to know, because this is just a simplified model, and since it's simplified, it don't see all the aspects that goes into being an effective group. So it can be used as a guideline or a guidance towards being more effective, but it should not be that is the golden standard. You need to do that and only that, and then you have the best effective group in the world.
Questions?
I just have a small comment. The figure, like, it's too tiny.
Yes.
So like probably
Well, we have been in VR the most of the time, so we did that on this. How shit it was the projection.
In VR, it's perfect because the screen's just there. Yeah.
I have a question. There were a point in a presentation that it doesn't really matter what have you done, but it's like more important the process, how it was done. Do you agree with me?
Well,
this will be based on the context. Let's say for our context, we are students now. It's more important on the process itself. But when in the real industry, then we see on the final product or service that you produce. So it's different context that we're looking differently.
It's for the healthy group, the process is more important on the long run, as if you don't meet certain criteria of having enough time or enough members or not a good environment in the group, you might get to the point of being able to deliver a product, but maybe you'll have members burnout, you lose people, and the group will be basically completely done. So it's important to have both. Of course, if you don't deliver a product, your group is done anyway because the stakeholders or whoever was counting on you will just lay you off. But if you don't have a good process, you're wasting the group, and you're not going to be able to work again. Of course, both are important, but for the group structure, the process is probably more important than actually delivering something.
There's an additional thing with certain approvals. So FDA approval, for example, you need to document your process, right? So part of the delivery is the meeting ISO standards for the way in which the project was conducted and like how conflicts were resolved, and all those things actually need to be documented as part of the project, right? So for some situations, the process is actually explicitly part of the product. It also, there are those situations as well.
You use slaves in your... It's a problem.
Well, there's additionally some ethical things that, like, yes, some countries won't invest in people who use child labour. So don't use child labour.
That's so cheap.
Questions. Like there was this like where the title was like effective group, and then you have three things: performance,
What group effective? Three criteria and
the
three factors.
Yeah. So it's like, does it mean that to be an effective group, you have to be like fulfilling all those three things? Because like in my mind, when I read those, I'm like, usually the groups I'm in is like groups of researcher, and usually we're like, let's say we're working on a paper, but it feels kind of like it's effective if the performance is great, and usually it's just because like, well, the groups I'm in, like, we're really similar. Leave me alone, I'll work, and it works in the end. But like on the more like person or something, yeah, it's like we don't have conflicts, but it's fine. We deliver. We're all happy, kind of.
But actually, that's three elements, the three criteria: personal, process, and what's the process? Personal, process, and somebody I forgot. That personal, process, performance.
Yeah.
There's three things integrated together. So let's say it's actually integrated together. It's quite influence and quite complex integrated, but it should combine together to evaluate whether that group is effective or not.
Yeah.
So it's not only on your personal, but also the process of the whole group and the performance, the last product and service of the group produce.
Yeah.
And I think that also goes back to that the model is not perfect because it's just a general guideline.
Yeah.
So if something else works, why should we change that? But
that's sort of like what I feel, because like if you look at the process, it's like, let's say 4 people working independently, but at some point they converge. Voila, it's great. Like that. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. based on my schedule, and now we're massively behind, and move the break up. We'll do so it's 24 hours. No, it's the yep. So we've had the first group, second group, third group.
This here.
Well, it's 24 because they didn't understand that group number was not group name, so they put in a group number. They put in group name rather than group number.
Never given a group number.
Right. Well, you were, because you were supposed to put in a group number for the surveys on week 4.
For the presentation.
The 24 eyes, because they're 4 eyes.
Well, yeah, but I can change it.
All 6 of them wear glasses. We didn't realise, so we have a lack of diversity. Though we might have diversity in eye conditions.
Yes.
So have you checked short-sighted versus long-sighted?
No, but
So are you?
I can still.
So who is long-sighted?
I actually don't know. Which?
I'm long-sighted on one eye.
Oh, so what are you, minuses or pluses on your prescriptions?
Are you supposed to read your prescriptions? I just hand them off.
Yeah, but we can't read them without glasses, so.
Okay, so my son is -5 and -5.5. My daughter has a -2 in one eye. My girlfriend at university was -10 and -11. Yes, she was legally blind and she got her contact lenses for free because if she dropped her glasses, she couldn't see them.
Oh.
She would crawl around on the floor using her hands to try and find her glasses because she just, even on hands and knees, she couldn't see the floor. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note.
Okay, so on the eyes have it.
Yeah, so we are 24 eyes. And our topic is, if you can read it on this, I'm not entirely sure how to say it, but I'll just say McClellan's needs theory of needs, which is also known as needs theory. So it's about how the needs of group members, or in other words, their motivations, have impact on conflicts within groups and also on group performance. So, first I will just give you a short introduction to the needs theory, and then Sabina will go through what those needs are, and then Joe and Ricard will tell you about a paper that have looked at how these needs have an impact on conflict and also group performance. And then at the end we will say how we feel this theory applies to us, and also what we think works and don't work with the paper. So, the needs theory was developed in the 1960s and is a motivational theory. I would guess many of you have heard about, I need to look up my notes, Maslow's theory of needs. So it's similar, but this focus on the three needs of achievement, a need of affiliation, and also the need of power. David McClellan, he was a psychologist, and he said that these three types of motivations applies to everybody, and that's regardless of age, sex, education, like it's race and culture, everybody's driven by these needs, he said. So, Sabina.
Okay. So first need is can I read it? Okay, so it's a need for achievement. It means that a person got a high desire for competence, accomplishments, and superior performance. This will be a person who wants to achieve goals but we can have people who got a high need for achievement and a low need for achievement. So people with a low need of achievement, they will want to, they will not participate with their ideas because they will be too afraid of being discomfort when it comes to conflict. Next need is a need for affiliation. So it's the desire for positive interpersonal relationships and communion. It means that we will have in our group people who really care about friendly relationship in a group, that they will, people with a high need for affiliation, they will try to avoid conflicts, and even if they will do not agree with something, they will try to say it in some friendly way. But people with a very low need for affiliation, they will just tell what they are thinking. So we need to be aware of that, that someone is not trying to offend us. Maybe someone just got very low need for affiliation. And we got need for power. So this is a desire for influence. So this is a person who would like to lead, and it might comes to some conflicts when we gather many people in a group who got a high need for power. We can be in one of those groups, but we can also have a high need for few groups. And I think we can go to the next slide.
We read a paper based on the need theory and its relationship to the group conflict and group performance. It's called Members' Needs, Intergroup Conflict, and Group Performance, and it is written by two Korean authors, Jin Seo S. Chun and Jin Nam Koi.
Yeah, so the study focused on intergroup conflict, which they hypothesized that the aforementioned needs would affect. Intergroup conflict is when there's disagreement or confrontation between two or more group members within a single group. They focused mainly on three conflict types, intergroup conflict types, which was task, which can occur when different members present and suggest different tasks and ideas, and if the tasks or ideas has incompatible content, then a conflict can arise if they start competing against each other. And then you have relationship conflict, which is when well, it's everything that's not task related, but it means if two members have different values and beliefs and they can't reconcile these beliefs and others. And the last one is status, which is basically when different members compete for influence and status.
Okay, in terms of group performance, according to the paper, the task conflict is positively associated to the group performance, which means the higher level of the task conflict is, the better the group performance will be. And this is only happen when the task conflict is effectively managed, because it can help people generate more ideas and exchange ideas, which can enrich group members' understanding of the tasks and engaging a successful cooperation. And demonstrate creativity. While the levels of relationship conflict is negatively related to the group performance, which means the lower level of the relationship conflict, the better the group performance will be, because the relationship conflict will shift the focus from the task domain to interpersonal problems, and it will cause stress and negative emotions that reduce the performance. At last, the level of stature conflict. The relationship between stature conflict and the group performance was not significant. It may indicate that the stature conflict have a mixed efforts on group performance. It may reduce the performance due to their distracted attention and will result in the lack of cooperation. But on the other hand, the internal competition among members maybe can boost their task effort if they attempt to gain status based on their performance. Yeah.
So for the conclusion, first off, about how we relate to the actual theory that was presented in the paper, we can kind of identify that we actually can see these attributes in the team, so the power, affiliation, and achievement ones. But at the same time, we kind of don't feel like we're really in like all of them, or well, in the entirety of one. We kind of take parts from each, and some of them maybe fall into multiple categories. At the same time, we kind of feel that you would probably be in different of these attributes for different tasks and groups. So, for example, if you're playing a game with your friends as a group, and you would probably have somewhat different attributes than if you did group work together with fellow students at school.
Yeah, so we also had some elements of sort of criticism to the study, and to the theory. So we're not necessarily agreeing on how they tie achievements to competition, as we believe that achievers won't necessarily go into how their ideas are better than others just to sort of prove a point or to raise themselves, which sort of that paper suggests, but rather that they are just interested in actually doing a good job. So also the sample has there's a relatively skewed gender distribution there. So I guess figure something like 70% male or something. And also skewed in terms of the distribution of education, so most people there are higher educated. Additionally, all those studies were done in Korea, and we're unsure if the cultures affect how transferable these results really are. Yeah. And with that, is there any questions?
So, do you guys do people identify a need for control, power, or control/power, achievement, and affiliation? Can you recognise those in yourself? Not all. Well, I suppose the thing is, do you feel within your group that you have a diverse range of these traits? Can you identify people who are controlling? Or like some level of control over it, something, yeah? So part of the idea is that, again, going back to the previous talk, diversity, some of the research in this area is saying that a diverse group with a diverse set of these needs is more effective than a group who are all power people, or who are all affiliation people, or who are all achieving, right? Because if you all just got achievers, then you can also get in each other's way. So, is the idea anyway. Okay. Yes. So McClelland apparently identified that most CEOs in America are power focused. Right? They have a need for power rather than a need for achievement. And if you had a need for achievement, you got stuck at middle management level. because you were just getting things done rather than finding opportunities where you would get more power. Right? So, yeah. Which, you know, the more modern theories kind of try and break this into many, many more needs and look at the more culturally specific ones, saying, well, this culture has more this balance of these things, and there are these other needs that aren't in this. So it is early work, but it's still being used. But there certainly are some cultural differences. Okay. Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Right, so last group. Yes. Yeah. Put your head around the curtain.
It's okay.
I think you're actually group 4.
When was that decided?
The week I was away. Was
Survey day.
Yeah.
When we
Survey
saw
day.
the survey.
Yeah, but then we just pointed to the. That's not the same number as the.
So, what number did you put in the survey day? 4. Yeah. Yeah, I'm treating you guys as a 4.
Yeah. Oh, we can start.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, we really did need this time. Yeah. That would have been quite bad without that. Right. Okay.
So we are presenting the Norwegian paper, which is from a book that is called Team. I don't know what the chapter is called. It only says chapter 3.
The Norwegian way of doing it?
Yeah. And it was quite short, so they mentioned a lot of things in the chapter, but they don't really go into depth because maybe that is explained later in another chapter, I don't know. But we will talk about what is a team first, some general, and what makes a good team next. And then we'll look at some, because this paper is emphasizing the importance of dependencies between the members in the team, and also the responsibilities in the team. So we'll look at some challenges there. Then we'll look at some different kinds of teams, and at the end we will look at virtual teams and how that is compared to normal teams. Both in the definition that they use and the 3 principles, they emphasize the importance of dependency and responsibilities in groups. 3 basic principles they have formed them themselves. A team is sometimes something different than the sum of each individual in the team. They say that it's important to look at both the individuals and the team, and that the sum of each individual's skills, personalities, is not necessarily the team. Even though on paper it seems that all the individual fits, when they're put into a team it can show that it works a lot better or worse. Next principle, in a team there will always be mutual dependencies on each other. They kind of illustrate it by saying we're all in the same boat, and if a boat is about to sink and one is responsible for throwing out the water that's coming in, and the hole is getting bigger and more water is coming in, all have to participate because and
also that they actually said that they asked several thousands of people through many years if you imagine that people are missing knowledge, skills, or attitudes towards doing a good job, and are unmotivated or selfish, if they would be doing a good job then, if the others are not doing a good job. And most of the people that were asked that question answered no. So that's why they have as a principle.
So then we do what makes a good team, what are some criteria to make a good team. The first thing they look into is the team size, where they say it should be between 10 to 10 people. And the categories they have is small, medium and big teams, where small teams are 5 or less people, medium teams are 6 to 10, and big teams are 10 plus people. The reason why they're not including 2 as a team is because they're calling it a dyad, where you basically only have 2 people and you can't really observe it with the third people. And the behavior of a dyad is so different from a team that they don't really want to include it. Also, one of the papers they cite, or the chapter cites a paper that says that a survey has told them that team members think that already at 6 or 7 people the group is too big. And going off this, they're saying that the optimal team size is 5 people, and the upper threshold should be about 7 people. And this comes to the point of relations, that the more people you have, the more relations you have in a team. And if only one of these relations break down, the entire team could fail. So, as an example then, if you have 3 people, you would have 3 relations. If you have 7 people, you would have 21 relations. And if you have 10 people, you would have 45 relations. So it drastically increases for every person you add, and it increases the chance of one of these relations going sour. Also, communication is an important part of a healthy relationships. To be able to communicate and to voice your problems, have discussions, and so on. In addition, you also have the shared responsibility and mutual dependency, which is important in a good team.
Okay, so the chapter or the paper is they have made an illustration that shows how important it is to have a balance between dependencies and responsibilities in a team, because if there is imbalance, then there might be team members that become stowaways when there is a high shared responsibility and low dependency in the team, or there can be suboptimization in teams when or in the team members if there's high dependence and low responsibility. And when a team has both low dependency and shared responsibility, they are a coordination group where they only do their task without having any relations to each other, while if they have high dependency and responsibility, they will make a team, which also means that if one team member doesn't do their part, the whole team or the task or the whole project will be fall apart. It is therefore important to find a balance between in the team. If the mutual dependency is high, then high shared responsibility will be the most functional for the team. And if the mutual dependence is low, then individually responsibility will be the most functional for the team.
Okay, so they mention a lot of different types of teams that has been defined by different literature. We have, for example, work teams, parallel teams, where two groups can work on the same goal, but they work independently of each other. And we have autonomous teams, where the individuals in the teams are, to a large degree, working independently. Self-managing teams, which are doing most of the scheduling of the work and finding out how to reach their goals by themselves, but they have a person from the outside defining the actual goal. We have the project owners in the applied computer science project. And then you have teams, the self-directed teams, which are more like the teams here. They're self-managing teams that also defines their own goals. Leader teams and virtual teams, where most of the, or a lot of the communication is dependent on different technologies. But they also say that these different types is not really that important, because if you know the basic principles of how to work in a team, you should be able to adapt to all different types. And as the Norwegian author so accurately puts it, a team is a team. Yeah. And yeah, probably the most important distinction here is leader teams versus leaderless teams, because that really has a big effect on the dynamic. And leader teams tend to be, or leaderless teams tend to be probably more inclusive and creates a feeling of equality, and can also lead to bigger motivation. But it can also slow down the process a bit and make it a little frustrating and make it hard to reach decisions. And the last one there is also becoming more and more relevant, and it's very relevant for this course, and that is virtual teams.
Regarding virtual teams, the paper mentions some pros and some cons. On the side of the cons is that it is cheaper and it is more flexible. Therefore, the members of the team do not need to be in the same space. And for instance, in the case of a working environment, the employer will have more possibilities to find the right person for their position because they are not limited to a certain geographical area. And it can also be more challenging to communicate, but on this point there are contradicting findings. Some papers say that it is easier to communicate or harder to communicate, so maybe more research in this area is needed. And on the picture, maybe you cannot see, but they mention that to have a good performance, you need first to have good coordination, and for good coordination you need to have relationship building, communication and cohesion. And so building relationship is one of the hardest points to improve when you have a virtual team, so it is important to work more on this area. Yeah, so in conclusion, the main area where it's room for improvement is in building relationships.
And of course, the virtual team requires virtual media. It's kind of like a project management. Like they are in different geographical places, so they need to communicate and like process their every action and distribute the task. And like we have here how they can communicate, like the presence of non-verbal and paraverbal with the synchronization like if we are communicating with the postal service, like what we have here in Norway, then you have to wait for a week to get a response, and during that time you can do a lot of stuff which is not productive. And we have a lot of other technologies like email, chat, or video conference, or face-to-face, which is highly unlike to happen, but that helps to create relationship and also increase the productivity of the process. And they need to actually agree on one of the technologies they are going to use, so that everybody will be in contact in one environment, so they don't have to go to every other social networking sites to have their conversation. And personally, what I found is in virtual teams, when you have like a small task, it's better to have a audio or video chat instead of written messages, because you have to write like a whole bunch of paragraphs to explain a simple thing, and you can just explain that in a minute or two and get done with the task. So and it also helps to build the team coordination, and like if you have a face-to-face communication, you will not be a stranger at that time, and you can have more efficient project task completion. And these are some of the project management tools to share files and stuff. And thank you for any questions?
So a team is a team?
Team is a team, yes.
Team is a team. For sure. So, would that suggest that the best sports are things like handball and netball and basketball, rather than 11 people on a football field?
Sorry, again.
So you're saying that teams of 5 are the optimum team size. So team sports of only 5 people on the field, are they better sports than sports which have like 11 on a field at a time?
They are more team sport. They have to work together more. In rugby, I played 15 people, or rather with smaller group. It's when you're playing with 15 people, it's at least 2 or 3 subgroup inside the team. So I don't know, maybe it's more natural to
divide up into smaller groups.
So
Yeah,
15 people
I
is
think it's the
difficult
same
to
with
group.
the football. You have a defense of 4 or 3. That's a team. Their main goal is to defend, not to score. So they have a small team of their own, and there's a midfielder to create chances. That's a team, and there's a striker, and that's 2 offensive team, and like a bunch of small teams that have like a big goal to win.
Yeah, and
So
also you're competing against 11 people, so if you were only 5, that would be unfair, probably.
In theory, that would be. Yeah. So I think what you could say is you could see how this is creating parallel teams working together, right? So a hierarchy where once you get up to 11 people, you don't want everybody trying to score. You have to start having roles. You have to have subgroups. You have to create teams within the team. So I think you can see this in other areas, because when you approach theory, don't just approach it from kind of believing what they say. Try and apply it to other things in your experience. Now, one of the things that follows up to is, for all of these presentations, the reason to have them is so you can refer to the theory when you write your process report. Right? So it is important to be thinking about all of this discussion in your groups and seeing, do any of these ideas, do they have any influence on the way you think about your group, or can you apply them to what's happened in your group? Can you see, oh yes, that was a situation where the team worked particularly well, or it was a conflict created by this different approach to things, or the way you've formed your team is is it a good team? Has it got the right characteristics of a team? So part of the goal is to apply this theory to what you're currently experiencing, and also apply it to other areas, right? Some of the advice, certainly in the first paper, around how you communicate and how you try and find compromises and things, can be applied to personal relationships as much as to group relationships. Right? The idea of being very clear on what things mean, very clear on what you're trying to achieve, finding joint objectives, those can help personal relationships as much as they help work relationships. Right? So this isn't just something to be focused on, oh, this only matters in this course. This should be something you think about across other activities you're doing. So I missed the second half of the do groups exist? So do you guys all believe groups exist?
On a meta level, maybe.
On a meta level. So one of the weird things we have in English is corporations. Right? And you know the language root for corporation?
Operation?
No. Corporeal. Right? Corporeal. Existing. Having a body.
Yeah.
So it's corporeal. Right? It exists. You can touch it. And for some reason, we've decided that businesses can be corporeal. They can have rights, and they can have attitudes and opinions. And in the States, there's a particularly interesting current discussion in different states as to whether a corporation can have a religion. Can a corporation be religious?
Who's asking
this is the question, right? Because
hard to say people who serve to gay couples.
Well, it's part like bakers who don't want to sell the gay couples are one of them. But
basically, religious people who doesn't understand their own religion.
Religious people who don't like tolerance. But
seriously, the only reason to do that is because of taxes. The same thing. That's the scientific psychology people do. They will have so much debt if they have to pay taxes. So save money.
There is an interesting but if you take the logical extension of groups existing, can then a group or an organisation have an opinion that is the opinion of the group that is independent of the opinions of the individuals? Because if you believe that a group is a thing, can they have these opinions? Right, yes. Okay. So, thank you guys. Yes, we can go into the... Sorry it took me so long to kind of... But why did none of you do that? Do that? But none of you really complained either.
No, because it was the problem.
During the break we complained.
Okay. But then you didn't...
We didn't have a solution because it's not like there's curtains or something that's obvious that we can cover light with.
We've tried fixing that for several years, but the architecture doesn't allow us to.
I didn't really notice until today that no classroom on this campus has curtains almost.
No.
It was so stupid.
No, the architect hates curtains.
Well, the new building.
What's the problem? What are you going to do for presentation?
Yeah, they look messy apparently. So the rooms on that side have the blinds that should close. So those rooms and those rooms have blinds. But that's north facing, so there's never sunlight coming from that direction.
But the blinds are an idiotic idea. They are automatic and they stay down all weekend, even during the night. So they're broken. You can still turn them down.
They're weird, yeah. So no, but this is kind of a problem-solving approach.
There probably weren't necessarily that many experts in the team who were like thinking about the actual product, but perhaps they were really thinking about the process.
Well, they're architects, and so it is also a challenge to get them to agree on doing things in particular ways. But okay, so the summary of the theory presentations today is about thinking about teams and groups and how groups work and how group conflict works. So when you start writing about situations, you should be able to refer back to these other papers. These were summary overviews. You should go and scan through the paper if there was something that you either agreed with or disagreed with. Go and have a look at how it actually works in the paper. For the McClellan's 3 Needs stuff, I've included the additional link to the paper that these guys read. There are many other papers you can read about it. It does fit in with, as you mentioned, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it is a theory that you can kind of use to try and sell ideas to people based on if you can work out that they are power-focused people. You sell them ideas on, is this going to give you more power? If you are an affiliation person, you sell them on the idea of saying, oh, this is what everybody is doing, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, everyone else in the group is doing this, you want to belong to the group, so you want to do this too. And achievement people, we say, yeah, this will be great. If we do this, it'll like work really, really well. Right? So the idea is to think about how the person you're talking to, how they're motivated. And if you can see dysfunction happening in the group because somebody is struggling with taking a particular role or wanting more of either power, or they're getting frustrated by a lack of achievement or something like that. Okay. So, as an overview from you guys, do you see any of this theory relating to your internal work? Yeah, you can kind of see. And some of the other groups you can see that yes, there are some similarities in a lot of these discussions. One of the nice things about sociology and understanding people is that unlike technology, which most of you guys are involved with, and particularly VR technology, which is changing so rapidly it's hard to keep up with, right? You as humans, your brains don't actually change that much compared to 100 years ago, right? A lot of your attitudes and a lot of the underlying sociology of people hasn't changed much, right? We still desire a lot of similar things. We still have some of the base needs. We still interact with human beings in a lot of the same ways. And so sometimes studying how groups form is nice because it's a bit more stable and you can use longer term research than, for example, studying VR, where research that was done 20 years ago in VR, some of that just doesn't matter at all because the technology doesn't work like that anymore. Right? So it's sometimes nice to get a balance of things that have long-term slow change versus things that have fast change. Okay, so for the rest of the day, it is lunch and then working and reflections at 3:30. Yep, okay, all good? Any more questions? Great, okay, have a great lunch.